Here.
LaCroix.
Here.
Mesco.
Here.
Northern.
Here.
That's a quorum. Let's recite the pledge.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If I could have a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
So moved. Second.
Any questions? Okay.
Mesco.
Aye.
Strack.
Aye.
Northern.
Aye.
LaCroix.
Aye.
Motion.
Aye.
Sorry. Motion carries. Do we have any public comments this evening? Are you sure? Okay.
Thank you for having us.
Then we'll just go right into Chris's tax levy presentation. Great enough.
Complimentary pillows and blankets out there.
All right, welcome. We should probably shut off one of the lights. All right, this is the preliminary levy presentation for 2017. We can just jump right in, talk about the levy with regards to some of our goals. Obviously, what we want to do is we want to optimize our tax revenues that we receive and make sure that the district is functioning at a very efficient level. Senate Bill 1947 is the new Senate bill that passed that has the minimum. It's the evidence-based model. It has the new funding formula for the state. They have actually given us some direction. There's going to be a little bit more money, the state says, that goes into our general funding. Along with that, though, is a little bit more responsibility from the state that they're going to put onto us. We do have our board goals. We've been continually looking at things like full-day kindergarten, or free full-day kindergarten, I should say, for all, one-to-one initiative. We've got foreign language classes, encore classes, lowering class size. So we're looking at some of those things this year. New initiatives kind of goes with the Senate Bill 1947. Like I said, the state's going to put a little bit more pressure on us to put some monies in certain areas that we might not be putting that money into right now based on their theory of what an appropriate district looks like. For me, I'm looking at the balanced budget. I know all of you are as well. And then I put this on as the last little bullet point up here. This is something that just crept back in to our lexicon in the last 2 weeks or so, the property tax freeze. We thought after they passed Senate Bill 1947 that they weren't looking at doing anything, especially for districts that don't meet adequacy, but that's been put back onto the table. So we'll just jump into what the purpose is behind the levy. The levy that happens in December of 2017 is used to fund the 2018-2019 school year. We do receive revenues in June, but those revenues that we receive are supposed to be used for the following school year. We'll also receive revenue in the fall. For our Ed Fund and Operations and Maintenance Fund, primarily we're looking at salaries and benefits. Obviously there's supplies, purchase services, tuition, utilities, and so forth in those funds. Transportation, we're looking at our vended service with our busing, also salaries for our coordinator. And then we have the Social Security IMRF Fund, which deals with retirement benefits and Social Security. Our tort fund deals with insurance. And then our bond and interest fund, that is our debt obligations. That is something that is levied solely by the county on our behalf. So if I always break the levy down into two kind of distinct sections. One is the operating levy. That is the request that we make to the county for dollars that go into our next year's budget. It's the operating levy. That's the one that is going to pay for everyday operations. That's going to be your salaries, your benefits, your supplies, and so forth. And then there is a bond and interest extension. Like I said, the county goes ahead and levies this on our behalf. This comes from, it's for the building of schools, it's for modernization, it's anything that, any instance where we actually have to borrow money in order to put up things like I said, schools, purchases of land, and so forth. That is something that the county actually does for us. It's an extension. It's not a levy. Levy is the request. The extension is what we receive. So this is something that has been done. We do have a debt book I have a debt book in my office, actually, that tells us what the bond and principal and interest payments are going to be for the remainder of the life of each of the bonds that we use to borrow with. I always throw in the slide about source of revenues. This just shows what we are compared to the state in terms of how our dollars are divided up. Illinois revenues by source, the local taxpayers generally pay about 66%. In our district, they are paying 72%. We are higher. Many districts like ours around the collar counties actually rely more on local property taxes than they do on funds from the state or funds from the federal government. If we take a look at some historical figures, and I also included the estimated extension. On the left-hand side, that graph shows the operating levy, and that is what a normal operating levy would look like when pictured in graph form. Basically, it's what we request, and usually everything for a school district will go up by about CPI and a little bit higher in CPI depending on new growth. The chart on the right shows the bond extension historical, and as you can see what we did in the past, we had backloaded bonds. Those bonds were going to escalate to over $10 million a year before the life of them, before we'd actually paid them all off. What we did is we recalled and reissued some bonds, and we flattened out that extension. Had we not done that, we would see taxes go up at a much higher rate before you had a dramatic drop, and then they would shift right back up again. We felt like flattening out that levy would be the best thing for the district. Then we could anticipate better what the taxpayer is going to pay, and we could smooth it out a little bit. I've given you some numbers on the bottom that show you exactly what the dollar figures are. And then since 2010, the operating levy average increase has been about 1.67%. Our bond and interest extension actually has been 4.51%. Like I said, when we first went out and borrowed money using bonds, we backloaded everything, so there's an escalator towards the end. Basic formula for the levy: you're going to take your prior year's extension, you're going to multiply it by 1 plus CPI, you divide everything by the EAV within the district boundaries, and you take out the new construction. So all of the figures are up there. What our prior year extension was, the CPI in December of 2016 was 2.1%. EAV, that is an estimated figure. We get that from the county. EAV is expected to go up another 8.85% this year. And then our new construction, not quite what we had last year with the Meyer, but it's still higher than what we've had in the past. It's at an estimated $1.45 million. So when everything is all said and done, we get ourselves a limiting rate of 4.161, and we use that to calculate what our capped extension is going to be. That figure is $27,843,461. I can get that right. I threw this slide in there. I didn't know exactly where to put it, but I did want to show the effects of a 2-year property tax freeze. Like I said, this is something that is back on the table. It has passed the House. The Senate was set to vote on it, and they pushed the vote off until the spring. Had that vote taken place and had they agreed to go ahead and go forward with a property tax freeze of 2 years, those highlighted numbers on the right-hand side of the chart show you annual revenue loss, which starts at 571 and escalates to 1.154 million. And then the far right column shows you the cumulative loss. You can see over a 10-year period, based on average CPI of 2.1%, we were looking at about $11.8 million in revenue lost. If we drop the CPI down to 1.5%, which is below the historic average, the chart on the bottom, all the way to the lower right-hand corner, you see $10.018 million lost. These figures do not include new construction. These are all without new construction, so those figures would actually be a little bit greater. I know there's some amendments to talk about maybe putting construction back into it, but and this is all based on the fact that once we did the evidence-based and the minimum base formula, the state had come out and said that, well, our adequacy rating is about 66%. So we are underfunded according to the state based on what the model is supposed to be. Two-year property tax freeze would take what we were rated at 66% and probably wind up lowering it. It's something that this slide just basically shows the amount of revenue that would be lost, and the effect on the district would be rather large. If we go into the actual levy request this year, I put up on this slide the prior year's extension on the far left-hand side. The maximum tax rates are, I don't know what that is in the middle, but the maximum tax rates, those are mandated by the state. I have an estimated maximum extension. We're not going to follow the maximum extension. What we're going to follow is that yellow highlight, the district request. Just like in other years, what we do is we request more than we believe we are going to receive. We do that for a specific purpose. Because there are so many estimates that go into coming up with the formula for the tax levy, and you don't want to miss out on any revenue that you would otherwise be entitled to, you have to go ahead and request a little bit more. It does not mean that you are going to receive more. You can only receive the maximum allowable based off of the limit. If new construction were to go up and I projected a levy at what I thought the extension was going to be based on the estimates, and things came in where we could have received more money, that wouldn't just be more money lost today, that would be more money lost going forward into perpetuity. So we request more than we actually think we're going to get. The actual expected levy extension is on the right-hand side. So on the operating levy, based on new construction and the formula, it looks like 2.32%. The CDOL, IMRF, and bond and interest are all part of the county extension. That's going to come in basically where it was last year. So if you total everything together in aggregate, you're looking at about a 1.81% expected increase over the prior year. Remember, CPI is 2.1%. And this is where I do the prior year comparison. The actual levy that we received is on the left-hand side, a request once again in yellow. The expected levy extension is just to the right of that, and then I show where the differences are. You know, where are we levying? Where are we levying more? Where are we levying less? On the education fund, you can see it's a $943,000 boost, but towards the bottom of that column, there is a special education line where it says it's a decrease of $497,000. Well, those are both actually going to the educational fund. They're just two separate levy items. So it's going to be more of an increase in the educational fund of roughly $446,000. We've levied more into operations and maintenance because we have been doing a little bit of work. Transportation, we're going to decrease the levy because we actually do have fund balance and we don't need to levy as much in transportation. IMRF Social Security, there's not much of a change. So what you can see is that the total extension dollars that are anticipated over the prior years will be an increase of $632,266, of which that is that 1.81%. 1.633% would be the responsibility of the existing property, and then 0.174% would be the responsibility of new construction. That would be the levy, the preliminary levy in a nutshell. Does anybody have any questions about the figures?
I have a question. Well, comment. First, thanks for putting this very detailed presentation together for us. Secondly, I know you're a planner, so if the tax freeze, property tax freeze, 2-year property tax freeze happen, what are we going to do?
Well, unfortunately, if that does happen, we've actually, some of us have sat down and discussed this. We would have to be looking at making some cuts.
Staff cuts?
There would be some staff cuts, some program cuts. We don't have any type of list finalized just yet. We didn't want to get to that point, but that's the number one area. That's the number one cost associated with running a school district is salaries.
Salaries, benefits.
There are some things, obviously, that we're doing right now that hope to benefit us, where we could perhaps levy a little bit less in operations and maintenance and a little bit more in the ed fund. We're looking at the solar project. We're looking at anything that goes green that's going to wind up saving us money.
About the you're talking tomorrow, you're having a meeting with the benefit guy about some
Oh, yeah.
savings.
So we look to reduce our expenses anywhere possible, especially from outside vendors. We've gone to the well several times, much to perhaps some dismay of, because some of our vended services now might not be what they used to be. Obviously, something like the copy machine contract. But that's what we look to do. We want to keep as many teachers as we can because that's the greatest benefit to the students.
Do we know, in our district, do we know exactly how many, the population of the number of individuals that happen to live in our district? I know we know about tax dollars, but is it a figure like that? And I'm asking that is because I know I've heard some cases where when the schools had cuts or need additional programs, you know, foundations raise money for it, and that may be something that can help if, you know.
We are lucky to have several very, very strong foundations, PTOs, I should say, and then one great foundation for the district. They've been doing a lot to raise money for us, raise money on our behalf. You know, we have a good relationship with them, so we can always have a dialogue back and forth.
One of the concerns I have, Chris all is the timing of any kind of tax freeze. If it's after March, we wouldn't be able to, you know, lay off any teachers if that was the direction we went, or eliminate programs, because obviously eliminating programs also eliminates staff. So right now, that's our biggest concern. If it doesn't happen until April or May, then we've got a major concern.
No, well, first, I know I don't want to see any teachers, staff, or program cuts, you know, if we can help it. But
right.
Is there anything in the union contracts that allow us to work with them on a basis of a situation like this? Because the only layoffs we'll be able to, well, if we have to make cuts, the only cuts would be administrative, top cuts, because they're not under contract, right? Well, they're under contract, but not the union contract.
In the past, the union has worked with the district.
We won't be the only district. So.
No, not at all. And we specifically, not to get into too many details of the collective bargaining agreement, but
yeah.
there's a reason why salaries were more short-term in there than long-term. Anything else?
In addition to the tax freeze in the legislation, there's the increasing the homestead and other exemptions. Would you mind just going over what effect that has on property taxes?
Well, once you start increasing exemptions, you decrease the amount that the person with the exemption is going to wind up paying, which means that the burden goes on the rest of the taxpayers that don't necessarily have the exemptions. So that it's just going to get spread differently. If everybody happens to have the same exemption, then you're not going to see any effect in your taxes. We know that that's not the case. In this district, we have less business, less industry to ease that burden, unlike other school districts and other communities. So if the idea is to get more of the taxes and put more of the tax burden onto businesses, it's not necessarily going to wind up happening that way. But that's what it would be. It would just be a respread of what happens. So, oh yeah, absolutely. That is. Did you want to say that? I can repeat what you said. But yeah, no, it does. If you're going to put more of a burden on new homeowners, then you're not going to see as many homeowners want to purchase property within our district. Well, everything's tied together. Obviously, yeah, the value of properties, you'd be looking at them decreasing as well. You all set? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris.
Board reports. Do we have anybody who wants to share anything?
I'll share. I attended the CEDAW's executive board meeting today, and you know, just an update. We're continually working toward our superintendent search. We have candidates coming in at the end of the month, and we're starting to look at forming questions that we want to ask the candidates. So if any board members have anything particular on their mind that you would like for me to ask, let me know so I can submit it so that those questions can get asked. So I'll keep you up to date on where we're at with that. Also, I just wanted to say congratulations to some of our young men and women that participated with the Chicago Youth Football League. Our JV Big Ten football team won the divisional championship along with the Super Bowl. And so we have a number of kids, well, my son was on the team, but it's a number of kids in our district that participate in, well, all the kids in our district, all the kids on the team is from our district, so they participate. So they had a great year, ended up being 10-2 and winning the championship of the Chicago Youth Football League for the Grace Lake Colts. So,
Who'd they play?
they ended up playing a team called Banner. I don't know the initials. It's some initials out toward like Aurora, Rockford area. It's like 4 cities together, 4 small villages together that formed. But they won a Class 3A, so it's kind of like high school where it's about 40, 50 teams, and they class them. So they won their division. The elite division. They were undefeated in conference. Again, they won the Super Bowl. That's all I'd like to report.
You know, we're from the community, and I got this right, November 15th, today, the 5 essentials system started today.
Was supposed to.
Well, there's a little problem with the state.
Will we start over?
Yeah, would you? The state has notified us that they have a few glitches, so it won't be able to start today.
Okay. Well, part B is that I'm impressed with the organization that I see in the curriculum aspect of the district, and I've often asked, if I'm a brand new teacher, how do I know what I'm supposed to be doing? And I think things are laid out well. And what I've seen as far as committee assignments and whatever, it appears that just about every teacher has some place to be and has some input somewhere. So I'm impressed with what's going on there. Veterans Day, what a day I had, holy cow. Got a free breakfast at the high school, and I got to sing, I don't know how many times I sang God Bless America. It's a switch from 30 years ago, that's for sure. Went to Frederick, and then I spoke to 3 classes over at GMS about time in the Navy and whatever. And it's fun to talk to, well, all kids, but junior high kids, when you tell them about an engine room where if the shaft is turning 135 RPM for 15 knots and the main turbine goes at 6,500 RPM, let's figure out how geared down that is to get down to to get down to 15 knots. So how big is the reduction gear? And I said it's about half the size of this room, and it is, and they like that. But the main thing I emphasized there was seriously consider some of the things that you can do with the military, because first of all, you get to see a little bit more of the world than this part of Lake County. You meet a lot of people. I remember the first person I talked from Atlanta, Georgia, I didn't understand the first 10 minutes I talked to him. And you find out people have different viewpoints. And you learn a skill, and you learn and you get some discipline in your life. If you didn't have it when you went in, one kid asked me, what happens if you're late for a watch? I said, you are not late for a watch. In fact, you're probably 10 minutes early. And he didn't understand that, but other people explained it to him. It was a good day. A lot of good things are going on. One final thing here, I'm going to be doing Science Olympiad in optics in 2 schools. But GMS has a problem in that they have so many kids signed up for it, they've got to via some kind of test, break it down to these kids are participating in regular Science Olympiad, and other kids will be in sort of a club arrangement. And that's an interesting problem to have. So, a lot of things going on, a lot of good things going on in this district.
We're on the diversity committee because last week we had our first November meeting, and we worked, our next steps this year is looking at different action items, and we spent, with the outstanding help of Joe and Leslie, we put together a welcome video that we might see later tonight to be broadcast during teacher conferences next week, showing the work and the belief and the value statements that the diversity committee has been sharing with the district and working on for the past year and a half. So it was a fun evening, and I'm looking forward to seeing the video. Thank you.
We recently had an assessment committee meeting. Paul led that meeting with Ellen. We read Inside the Black Box, which is sort of a quintessential article that has changed assessment the way we know it. And so it was, Paul took us through a brainstorming activity. I thought it was really useful. And just to be reminded of just the hard work that teachers are doing and just the change that is happening in the district, because assessment is so clearly aligned with curriculum. So as you're making the attempt toward balanced assessment, it can be challenging. For instance, we use MAP testing, and that from what we were discussing, it's not necessarily aligned to the Common Core standards. And so one of the big questions was whether or not those are really correlated, and how useful is MAP testing. But I think that's why you have a balanced assessment, because then you have the district-wide common assessments that are being created, and the schedule that will be balanced with in-room classroom assessments that teachers are developing themselves or in teacher teams. They can be common or not, and then there are definite common assessments. And so just looking at the cycle over the year was definitely useful. And next time I hope to talk more about park testing and how we're utilizing that, and a little bit more about, again, my question is how, I think MAP testing is useful, but then if it's not correlated with how children are performing on park testing, then I think that's something we need to study for our district, and whether or not, how long is park here to stay is one question. How are teachers utilizing these different forms of assessment? And I guess my question is, how are we going to evaluate whether or not these assessments that we're using are actually producing the high-level, deep learning outcomes that we're hoping to see in the district? What are we using as our benchmark? Is it PARC? Is it MAP? Is it our common assessment? So these are still questions that I have, and that Paul is doing, and Eleanor, they are both doing a good job in our committee asking those questions. I'm curious too, I know Tom and I were on the curriculum committee, and it seems like the curriculum and assessment committees should have somewhat of a, I guess, back and forth, or I don't know if we should combine them, but it seems like, I'm curious for, your feedback on that. And then there's the whole evaluation piece, and so we talked about the need for accountability, and how, as a district, are we evaluating the effectiveness of some of these initiatives that we're trying. So I know that there's Hattie's effect sizes based on some, at this point, a meta-analysis that might be a little bit outdated. And so how are we gathering our own evidence and our own lines of evidence to show that the changes that we're making and the money that we're pouring into different initiatives are actually producing the outcomes that we want to see. So that all kind of spurred in our assessment committee, and again, that's part of the reason why I wanted to start this committee, was to look at the evaluative piece. So anyway, those are ongoing discussions.
Excellent. All good. Thank you. Anyone else?
I had the opportunity to read to my daughter's fourth grade class last Friday as the guest mystery speaker. And I know this is controversial, but I think it's just really great that parents have the chance to go into the classroom and read. It's a testament to the power of getting kids excited to read when their parents come in to read, because as poor a public speaker as myself was able to get the kids excited, I think that it can show what really wonderful things a program like that can do. I read a little bit of an Andrew Clements book and an excerpt from the last holiday concert where one of the students shoots a rubber band at the choir director, and the kids loved it, and I had a lot of fun with it, and I just think it's wonderful that we get to have the parents go into the classroom to read and get the kids excited about reading.
If it's the choir director, we don't know the idea.
Correct. I just stopped short of teaching them how to effectively shoot a rubber band. It took all the restraint I could muster.
Thank you.
So for those of you in the audience, we don't always have food prior to our board meetings, but we are here tonight to honor our board members and for all the work that they do for us at such a high rate of pay. Actually, they do not get paid anything for doing this. They are very invested in what they do, and they're here for all the right reasons, our students. So thank you all for everything you do. We also wanted to give you a preview of our diversity video. So if Joe will come up, and you will soon see that Leslie has done an absolutely tremendous job putting this all together. This will be running in each building during the conferences on Monday and Tuesday. We'll have it set up so that they can, and then there will be brochures if anybody wants to take any to talk to. Yes.
And then it'll eventually go on our district webpage as an available video for everybody.
Did you guys know school board members to be paid, or you know?
I don't know because my mother was on the school board, or they was on the school, so.
Our pay is, you know, young kids performing well, and, you know, at the end of the day, when it comes to adults, it's up to them. That's all it is.
Welcome to District 46. My name is Stephen Mack, and I'm a member of the Board of Education. In 2016, the board, in conjunction with the district, created the Diversity Committee. It is our goal that you feel welcomed, valued, appreciated, and a part of our District 46 community. The Diversity Committee is working to ensure that we have programs in place that value student ideas, community members, families, staff, teachers, and board members, and that we're all part of the same team here in District 46. Welcome again to District 46.
We, the families, students, teachers, administrators, and staff of Community Consolidated School District 46 believe in the fundamental and inherent equality, dignity, and value of all who study, participate, and work in our school community.
We welcome students of all races, ethnicities, and nationalities.
We welcome students with diverse abilities.
We welcome students who are LGBTQ+. We welcome students of all family structures.
We welcome students who are English language learners.
We welcome students from all socioeconomic backgrounds.
We welcome all students regardless of their immigration status.
We reject hate, discrimination, and intolerance in all its forms.
We support academic excellence for all and recognize our diverse community and the contributions that all make to successful learning.
We seek to build strategies and solutions to combat and eliminate all forms of discrimination in our school community.
We value, as teachers, administrators, board members, staff, and volunteers, our role in modeling culturally responsive and socially responsive practices for all students.
We encourage curiosity and inquiry in order to learn from diverse life experiences.
We support all of our students, and we provide safe environments for them to express ideas and concerns.
We welcome you.
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 Te damos la bienvenida.
We welcome you. Vi välkomna dig. We welcome you.
Wij harten u harte welkom.
We welcome you.
Bruchim habaim lekulam.
We welcome you.
We welcome you.
أهلا وسهلا.
We welcome you. Vous aurez la bienvenue.
We welcome you.
We welcome you.
We welcome you.
Diversity Committee welcomes your feedback or comments as we continue our work. Please feel free to take any of the parent resources on the table provided. Please see the link to the District 46 website for more information.
Thank you, Leslie.
Yeah, that was all Leslie. I just played the video.
Okay, thank you very much. That was good. Next up, we have our consent agenda. If I could have a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda, including the personnel report.
Make move. Second.
Any questions? Okay.
Northern,
Aye.
Parkinson. Aye. LaCroy,
Aye.
Strack,
Aye.
Meskel,
Aye.
Knapp.
Aye.
Motion carries. And then we have a few action items this evening. First, if I could have a motion to approve the technology purchase for Park Campus at a cost of $11,024.65.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Are there any questions? The money comes out of the building fund. It was for Chromebooks, right?
Chromebooks.
Meskel,
Aye.
Knapp,
Aye.
Parkinson,
Sorry, this is on Chromebooks?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, my mic wasn't working. Troubleshooting. Aye.
Northern,
Aye.
LaCroy,
Aye.
Strack.
Aye. Motion carries. Next, if I could have a motion to approve the 2017-2018 certified and PSRP seniority lists.
Yeah, I assume the people in charge of the union aspects have seen this and
Yeah, they
they're in
provided
this
to us.
there.
Mhm.
Okay.
This is just a listing of the staff in there.
Yes. Yes. Mhm.
So moved.
Second.
LaCroy,
Aye.
Northern,
Aye.
Strack,
Aye.
Parkinson,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
Meskel.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, if I could have a motion to approve the certified collective bargaining agreement.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
And just for your knowledge, the teachers did ratify the contract this afternoon.
Any questions?
Mack,
Aye.
Northern,
Aye.
Strack,
Aye.
Parkinson,
Aye.
LaCroy,
Aye.
Meskel.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, if I could have a motion to approve the PSRP collective bargaining agreement.
So moved.
And the PSRP also ratified.
Seconded.
Meskel,
Aye.
Parkinson,
Aye.
Strack,
Aye.
Northern,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
LaCroy.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, if I could have a motion to approve the 3.25% salary increase for non-union, non-administration employees for the 2017-18 school year.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? Okay.
Northern,
Aye.
Meskel,
Aye.
Parkinson,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
Strack,
Aye.
LaCroy.
Aye.
Motion carries.
I have a comment about that, if it's okay. Just for the benefit of the students and, you know, the individuals watching on a live stream and our other guests here. How we're able to go so fast through this is that we get our board packets ahead of time and have an opportunity to review the information. And so, you know, some people that's not familiar with the process may feel that we're just saying yes, 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 but we have already reviewed it and been a part of the ongoing process preparing this agenda. So it's not that easy, you know, just to come to a board meeting and say, yes, you got to really do some stuff. Just, you know.
Not to mention the many hours of negotiation.
Well,
Yes.
that too.
They go into it, so.
If we have questions, these usually are taken care of by seeing the superintendent or somebody a week or days before we have the meeting. I'm glad he brought that up, because if I work with student teachers and they say, well, attend the board meeting, they come back and say, well, those guys just roared right through that whole thing. Well, there have been subcommittees been working for months getting the information out.
Thank you for those clarifications. Next, if I get a motion to approve the resolution authorizing purchase of real property.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Any questions?
So this would be contingent on approval by the project by the Grays Lake Village. We did go to the Planning Commission on Monday night, and it passed both the land from the project at Frederick and the project at GMS passed the Planning Commission. So we would assume, hopefully, that it'll be approved on Tuesday night.
Tuesday nights, the full board will vote on it?
Yeah.
We need the whole.
I couldn't quite figure out what they, it looked like cow. I said, what is this? It's,
from the information I received, that we won't have an issue with.
good. They asked good questions, but yeah.
You know, I asked Chris this morning, still number 8 there, it just seems odd if we're selling something to an organization that doesn't pay taxes. Why do I have a statement in there about real estate taxes? I don't know. It's
always
just
gotta have statements in there.
Yeah.
Process.
Yeah.
The red tape.
Okay.
Yep.
Parkinson,
Aye.
Northern,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
Strack,
Aye.
Mesco,
Aye.
LaCroy.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, we have no unfinished business, so new business, the review of the adequacy dollars and the district priorities.
So what we're going to, what I'd like to do is to review the board priorities and then compare that to, you mentioned Hattie tonight, some research, as well as review the evidence-based funding formula. And the funding formula ties school funding to the cost of implementing those best practices, which research has shown has a statistical, meaningful, positive effect on student achievement. So each district, can't do that there. Each district will, I'll put it here, be reviewed on 24 to 27 items, which we'll look at first, or look at here a little bit later. Of those 27 items, your district will be analyzed to see where they fall in one of these 4 tiers. So tier 1, you have to be 64% or less of adequacy based on those elements. And those districts would receive 50% of the funding. Right now, they're saying that's $350 million. Not just for us, but across the state. Tier 2, which is where Chris and I believe we're going to fall, you get, it's for 64 to 90%, and those districts would receive 49% of the funding. Tier 3 is 90 to 100%, which only gets 0.9%, and Tier 4 is over 100%, which is 0.1%. And again, District 46 expects to fall in Tier 2. Mm-hmm.
That would show how many districts fall into those?
They're still, and they're still deciding where everybody falls. Originally, we told we were going to be notified in November, December. Now they're telling us the end of January, beginning of February, and I expect that that's going to be delayed even further. So right now, and as soon as I get it, because I think that would be very interesting to be able to see what percentage of districts fall in different places. That's all based on these 27 elements we're going to show you here in a little bit. Sure, okay. So the board, just for the public too, these adequacy dollars cannot be used to supplement our budget. So they can't be used for salaries, existing salaries, or buying any other things that aren't on one of those 27 elements. And we will be held accountable for that.
Question and a comment. That last column then is the new $350 million money,
Yes.
and the percentages are what percentage of that 350 goes to
Yes.
each tier? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then the comment is, it sounds like you say these new monies can't go towards existing.
Correct.
They're to remedy any deficiencies
Yes.
in the 24 elements. And
Right.
is that going to be a bookkeeping nightmare?
It is.
Yes. Okay.
And not only that, they are also tied to buildings. So we're not only going to have to look at it as a district, but we're going to have to look at how much funding goes to each building to make a change. So we've talked earlier about research from John Hattie, but before we do that, I want to remind you of the 4 top board priorities. And this was last spring when the board voted on given all of the priorities, which were the top 4. One-to-one technology, foreign language were the first 2, with full-day kindergarten and added encore being the next 2. Just for you to keep in mind as we continue this. So when you look at Hattie's research, and you said some of it's outdated, but actually he continues to update all of these. I think and you'll see the very last one is different. So these are effects that affect student performance. So obvious, and point 4 is the average effect size, which makes a difference in student performance. And obviously, we would think that boredom and lack of sleep would negatively affect performance. I'm not going to go through all of these. I'm just going to hit a couple of them that I wanted to bring to your attention, because you're going to see on the elements class size mentioned. And with his research, class size is a 0.21, which is less than what you want to see the average being if we take that average at 0.4. But what this means is 2 things. Class size, you can't reduce it by 2 or 3 kids and expect to see an improvement. But most importantly, you're not going to see a difference when you reduce class size unless there's a difference in the way you teach. So many times you reduce your class size, but then you don't change the strategies, so you're going to have the same performance results. And you can take a look at these on your own. You've got them in your packet. But I want to, once you get to 0.56, student engagement, this is something that our instructional coaches have been working very hard at this year, is trying to find and teach ways of engaging students. I could have Barbara stand up and do some of her little rah-rahs, but I don't think she would. But so engagement, the coaches are working hard with that. Another one, computers with learning needs students. If you look at Hattie's research, just computers by themselves has a sort of, it's about a 0.12 or 2.1, somewhere in there. But for computers with learning needs students, there is a very positive effect with a 0.57. The goal difficulty is our rigor, and that is being directly affected by what Paul and the curriculum they're doing all throughout the district. We've got concept mapping. Feedback is always an interesting one, because feedback has got to be specific. It can't be just, hey, Kathleen, you're doing a great job. It's what is it that Kathleen's specifically doing that's making a difference. Planning and prediction, another higher level thinking skill. Observing classrooms for input, so we're doing a lot of that. The instructional coaches are getting into classrooms and observing. Paul and I go into classrooms and see what's going on, and then provide feedback to the administrators, and the administrators are in and out of those classrooms. This last couple of weeks I've been doing the administrative evaluations, and what we have done has been going in and out of classrooms and looking at student engagement. And the administrators all know exactly what's going on in those classrooms, and so that's been very beneficial. Doing jigsaws, and the last one, Kathleen, is what I was going to talk about. This has changed. So the collective teacher efficacy has the highest effect on any of the research. So these are the elements the 20, sometimes you say 24, 20, sometimes 27 elements that we have for the new funding. So the first 4 have to do with class size. And they split out the low income and the students that are not low income, which will be a nightmare for us because obviously we don't have classes that are just low income students. So that is going to be a challenge. It's the core teachers at K-3 goes down to, the low incomes goes down to 15. The core teachers to 20, or K-3 not low income is 20. And if you remember right now, our K-2 class size is 25, and our 3 to 8 is 30. Then core teachers 4 to 12 low income is 20. We are at 30, and the same thing with the next one is 25 and 30. Well, see, that's what we, and the problem is, this is the only guidance we've gotten, this.
Have you gotten it?
With, on the side, I've gotten, you have this part, you don't have the other side, I can send that to you. So then we go through the core intervention, the instructional facilitators. Basically what they're saying is there should be 1 instructional coach for every 200 kids. We are right now at a ratio of 1 for 760 kids. But with all of these elements, we obviously cannot as a district do them all. So that's where our challenge is going to be. Substitute teachers, they give you a certain amount of money. It's supposed to be 33.33% of average teacher or special education salary. Some of these are crazy. Nurses, there should be 1 nurse for every 750 students. I can tell you that we are nowhere near that. We're 1 for every 1,900 students. There's money for gifted and talented. Anyway, what all of these elements do is the state will look at all of this and then say how you fit in with the adequacy. So if you look at the board priorities and you look at the research and then at the elements, let's see where there's any similarities. So if we looked at one-to-one technology and we looked at the research, 0.16% effect size with just regular ed students, but then with learning needs students was 0.57, and then the elements do address that. They name it computer technology, which includes the computers, servers, network equipment, copiers, and curriculum management and coursework. Foreign language board priority is not on the research, and it's not 1 on the elements. Full day kindergarten is not on the effect size for Hattie. However, it doesn't, when the first elements came out, all day kindergarten was on it. When they redid it and brought it from 27 to 24, it wasn't mentioned, but it is in the formula. So I don't know why that changed. Added Encore was a board priority. It's not on the list, and I guess you could say that it's part of the specialist teachers because the specialist is art, music, that type of program. So we're not doing anything with this tonight, but I wanted you to start thinking that we're going to have to make some decisions if and when we get this money about how it's going to be used. We can't use it with all 27 elements. I mean, it depends a lot about how much money we get, and it also depends on whether, we want to make sure we can sustain it. So if we decide to do all-day kindergarten, we better be sure that this can be sustained. We can't just have it 1 year and then say, no, we're not doing it anymore. So. Interestingly enough, I've talked to a couple of people that were on the core group that created the Vision 2020, which is where most of this came in. They did, but there was also some political things that came into this, like the class size. So, yes, it is.
It would be nice to have more resources. I'm not discounting Hattie's.
Oh, no. Yeah, okay.
Have be more informed.
So just one more piece of this is, the class size has a weak effect size, but it also, to reduce our class size, it would cost us several $1 million, and we'd have to add on to some buildings. So before Chris has any more gray hair or has a heart attack. More. Well, I didn't mean that. That didn't come out right, did it?
You want to give him his first one, right?
It's first grade here. And then just, you know, I'm not pushing the instructional coaches, but I just want to let you know that these are some of the things that they all are working on right now. So just things to think about, and we will be talking about it again. Questions?
I know they have K3 and then the 4 and higher on there. When they talk about class size, do they split that? When someone says class size doesn't make a difference, I always say I believe it does at the primary level. I just wish we'd talk about it. It's like when I get a phone call, do you support a tax increase? On whom? Do you support a tax decrease? On whom? Do you support a lowered class size? On whom? You know, so, I mean, I've had teachers would say, I'll take 35 in my class, my trigonometry class. If he's got this tough class over here, he's a max of 19.
And see that?
That's what makes sense.
I know.
That's right. You just need different, like I was talking about with assessment, just different lines of evidence to triangulate the goals, right? So what are these are the different opportunities, and these are our priorities. What are some different ways that we can do our own research, not just looking at one line of evidence? Do our own research for their own teachers. You know, what do our teachers have to say?
You know, just for background, about 18 to 20 years ago, the one phrase that was on the cover of all the education magazines was time on task. Now, if you stop and think about that, that is powerful. First of all, the task has to be meaningful. Then it also would imply that you've dissected the task and thought about it. These are my prerequisites. You've done all those things as a teacher. Time on task is a powerful thing, rather than just increase time for the class. Meet an hour and 15 minutes. It's time on task, and that was an important thing, and that's 20 years ago.
And that's, I think, what we're looking at when we're looking at student engagement. It's similar, just this worded a little differently.
And just from a psychometrics standpoint, a lot of what we look at in effect sizes, in looking at p-values, a lot of people would say that's wrong. So that again, it's like, it can be directional. I'm curious what studies went into his work.
All right.
Another point.
Questions?
Okay, topics for future agenda items.
So we have a levy hearing. Is it the next 6 o'clock levy hearing? Yes, and so just the meeting is GMS next time, Park, on our schedule at Park. It needs to be here because Jim is on duty, yeah. Yes.
December 6th?
Yes.
Hope we have a point of sale recommendation.
And we'll update on the solar project, and by that night, we should have approval by all 3 villages, so we'll be able to update on that.
Just to comment on some things sent out to us over the electronic waves. The little spiel that you put together for the teachers before they started their work, I thought that was very well done. What reaction did you get today?
Positive.
What's a day you should not ask for a reaction, just a paycheck?
Yeah, no, it was very positive.
Right.
And you know, we want to make sure that the message gets out, and sometimes things just get a little bit skewed, and so, but I thought the fireside chat was great.
I have a comment to think about it. For people who are watching this school board meeting over here, hey guys, I'm rapping at you.
Did he say rap?
You watched what I would consider to be a rather professionally operated school board meeting. We didn't talk about trivial things, we didn't joke around about kids or make fun of anybody or whatever. And we talked about things that are research-based and what I think boards of education ought to do. I just want you to take that back with you. There's no excitement in the Daily Herald tomorrow, unfortunately. Things of this nature probably should be on the front page of the Daily Herald that says these are the kinds of things this board talks about. It's a good board. Someday serve on your board. Give back.
Yeah, thank you for coming. We appreciate it. Are there any public comments? Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
They can come every time.
I run a board too. You guys can come to my board meeting.
We do need a closed session, which I don't think will last too long, but if I could have a motion to enter into closed session pursuant to the sections of the Open Meetings Act listed in the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
LaCroy,
Aye.
Parkinson,
Aye.
Mesco,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
Strack,
Aye.
Northern.
Aye.